What do you think the Steelers are going to do, and what do you think the Steelers should do at quarterback?
All right. Well, number one, they've done a very good job of keeping their playing their cards in house and not sharing a lot of the conversations that they've had. I'm sure when you think about it, Dan. So, I, you know, I think right now there's really not a deadline. So I'm sure they're sitting back, weighing what their options are. I don't know exactly how much money has played into this. I think they wanted Justin Fields, is my speculation. Again, this is all speculation. I've talked to nobody within the building, but I think they wanted to go with a younger player to see if he could develop. I personally think that Russell Wilson is your best choice. It's the better. It's going to be a better offensive line room with Fontenot coming back and moving Broderick to left tackle. I think you're looking at the best receiving core you're going to have in a long time in terms of if they can keep George Pickens or not. That'll be the next conversation that you will have to have. Roman Wilson was a guy they were very counting on last year. Calvin Austin stepped up. So I think the offense in whole, and I think with Arthur Smith in the second year, in theory should take a step forward. So I think they're sitting back, and again, I think this is not unlike a Pittsburgh way of doing things, of seeing what their options are, not feeling pressed to make a decision based on the fact there's no deadline.
But also with Aaron at this age, how much should you factor age into this? The way he plays the position.
Well, I think the same as you factor Russell into it. I think that these are two players that who gives you the best chance to win this year, maybe next year, and then in the meantime, bridge yourself to the next quarterback, whoever that may be. I think back then to when we had Neil O'Donnell, who was a third-round pick, and we ended up having Cordell Stewart, who was a second-round pick. Both those players, as you sat there and you built your team, realize that, that was a position that, you had to have consistent play from. And I think that's what they need to get. Is it going to be a guy that's a franchise quarterback? Not everybody has one, but I think the biggest thing you have to do is build around it and not just sit there and wait on one position to say that that's going to be the fate of your football team. You think about the last 5 losses. This wasn't just on Russell Wilson. This was, you played 2 of the teams were in the Super Bowl. And then you lost 3 games to division teams, 2 to Baltimore and 1 to Cincinnati, and those are very much playoff caliber teams. And I think we look at all 5 of them. You played against 5 really good quarterbacks, and the defense did not play up to snuff, to be quite honest with you. And certainly the offense didn't contribute. Didn't have your best players at this time. George Pickens was probably hurt near the end of the season, so you're a little handcuffed from that position standpoint, but. Again, I think you go back and as you sit back and reflect, I think they had a chance to work with Justin, had a chance to work with Russell. You know who they are, and they know the system as well. You lost Justin. Russell's still out there. You have a chance to get Aaron Rodgers, and can he still throw it? Yes. Is he mobile enough? I think so. But does he really want to play? I mean, The longer you wait, you just have to wonder where is his heart and how much does he really want to do it. I said, I just think when somebody starts talking about retirement, they've already checked the box. So they've checked out to some degree. And, so how much is he motivated to want to come here and be a part of trying to win a championship and then consequently bridging a bridge to the next guy? And maybe that next guy is Mason Rudolph, and he's sitting there right there underneath your nose. He played there before. Could he be a later Geno Smith? Could this be Sam Darnold, who all of a sudden they blossom later in their careers? So I think there's a lot that has to play out. I think signing Mason Rudolph made a lot of sense.
If you were still coaching, would you reach out to Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I think I would have reached out to him from the very beginning. And I'm sure that they did.
Do you think Mike Tomlin reached out to him and just to gauge his interest?
100%.
Okay.
I don't think there's any question about that. And I think, again, from Aaron's standpoint, he's a guy that thinks through a lot of these things. This is where he's in his career. I do not think that if he decided to go wherever he goes, he'll be all in. That's just the way he is. I do think that there's a degree, and I said this to you last time I was on the show, I don't think he liked the way he exited. And you look how he played last year. He played all 17 games, determined to do so. But, the 5 wins, that's just not who he wants to go out as being a quarterback of that kind of team. So I think he's motivated to play. And I think at the same time, where does he want to play? But, those are conversations that you got to be convinced that that's where his heart is at. And I think that's the thing that you'd have to have is constant communication with him from that standpoint. And where's Russell in this whole thing? So, I mean, that's the thing. Again, I go back to the same thing. You've worked with them for a year. A lot of good things were done. They weren't healthy at the end of the season. This is a much better receiving room core. DK Metcalf, you have a history with him. Again, the biggest question to me on that offensive side is what are you going to do with George Pickens? Is he going to be motivated to play in the last year of his contract? Are you going to extend him? Or is there going to be any degree of getting something for him from the standpoint of trade? So these are conversations that I think are having, but also there's no deadline to some of these conversations. The biggest deadline you're going to have right now is going to be the draft.